Let me tell y'all something. Sometimes the people you love the most will stab you the deepest, and it don't even come from strangers. It comes from the man you cooked for, the man you cleaned for, the one you laid next to every single night. You think he's your partner, but then he look you dead in the eyes and say, "You're nothing but a maid to me." That's exactly what my husband told me, right before he forced me to hand over the $200,000 my mama left me when she passed. And you better believe I never forgot those words. Welcome to Elderly Story. Make sure you like and subscribe for your top-notch stories. Let us know in the comment section where you are watching from and what time you are currently watching this video. Now, let me take y'all back to where it all started. My name is Lillian. I'm 62 years old now, but this story goes back to when I was in my late 40s. My husband Charles was a man everybody in the neighborhood respected. He dressed sharp. He had that smooth talk, and people thought he was a family man. But behind closed doors, Lord have mercy, he was a whole different person. He'd sit in that living room, feet propped up on my good coffee table, barking orders like he was some king. "Lillian, bring me my plate," he'd say, not even looking at me. I remember one time I said, "Charles, you can get up and fix your own plate. You got 2 hands." He looked at me so cold and said, "That's your job. Ain't that what you here for? You my wife, my cook, my maid? Don't get it twisted." Those words cut me like a knife. I ain't no maid. I was a wife, a mother, a woman with dreams and dignity. But with Charles, it didn't matter. He made me feel small every single day. The only thing that kept me going was my mama. Mama always told me, "Baby girl, don't you let no man define you. You worth more than gold." When she passed, Lord, I thought my world was ending. But then the lawyer called me in, handed me a sealed envelope, and said Mama left me something. I opened it, and my hands shook when I saw the amount. $200,000. Mama had worked her whole life saving and sacrificing, and she left it all to me. I remember crying that night, clutching that check to my chest, whispering, "Thank you, Mama. I'm gonna make you proud." But little did I know Charles already had his eyes on it. The moment he found out about that inheritance, he turned into somebody I didn't even recognize. He stormed into the bedroom one night, slammed the door, and said, "So when was you gonna tell me, huh? You sitting on $200,000 and keeping it from me?" I swallowed hard and said, "Charles, it's not yours. Mama left it for me and the kids' future." He laughed, a cruel, ugly laugh I'll never forget. "Future? You think you got a future without me? Woman, you nothing without me, you hear me? You owe me that money after all I done put up with." My heart dropped. Put up with? Charles, I've been the one putting up with you. I've been cleaning up after you, raising your children, cooking your meals, working double shifts just to help with bills. But he wasn't hearing none of it. He grabbed me by the arm so tight it left a bruise and hissed, "Don't you dare think you can keep it from me. You go and hand that money over, or I'll make sure you regret it." And I believed him, because Charles wasn't just a man with a loud mouth. He was a man with a temper, the kind that could make a whole room go silent when he walked in. I barely slept that night. I lay there in the dark, my mind racing, Mama's voice echoing in my head, "Don't let no man define you." But how was I supposed to hold on when I was living with the devil himself? The next morning, he shoved the bank papers in front of me. "Sign it, put it in my account." My hands were trembling, but I did it because I was scared. And the moment I slid that check across the counter to the banker, a part of me died inside. But I promise you this, that wasn't the end. No, baby, that was just the beginning. Before we dive in deeply, let us know in the comments what country or which city you're watching this story from. We'd love to know how far this story travels. The day I handed over that money, I remember walking out of the bank like a ghost. My feet touched the ground, but it felt like I wasn't even there. My whole body was heavy, like I had just buried Mama twice. Charles strutted out behind me, chest puffed, like he had just won a trophy. He even jingled the envelope in his hand, smirking at me. "You see, Lil, he said, loud enough for people passing by to hear. "This gon' change our lives. You should thank me for handling it like a man." I wanted to scream. I wanted to slap that grin clean off his face, but instead I just kept walking because if I opened my mouth, I was scared of what I'd say. When we got home, I went straight to the kitchen, tried to busy myself cooking, hoping he'd leave me alone, but Charles came in, leaning against the counter with that ugly grin still plastered across his face. "You know," he said, "people always talk about how strong their wives are, but look at you. You fold easy. One little push and you hand over everything. That's why you ain't nothing but a maid to me, Lil. A maid with no backbone." I dropped the spoon I was holding. It clattered against the pot so loud the kids in the living room turned their heads. My daughter, Denise, asked, "Mama, you okay?" I forced a smile. "I'm fine, baby. Go on back to your homework." But I wasn't fine. My insides were burning. I looked at Charles, and for the first time in years, I felt something shift in me. It wasn't just sadness, it was anger. That night, I couldn't sleep. Charles was snoring beside me, his arm thrown across the bed like he owned the whole world. I stared at the ceiling, thinking about Mama. I remembered the way she used to hold my hand whenever I felt lost. I remembered her saying, "Lillian, life gon' test you, but you stronger than you think." Well, Mama, I think the test done arrived. The very next morning, I started noticing changes. Charles wasn't hiding it. He was spending the money like water. He came home with a brand new gold watch, strutted in like a peacock, showing it off to the kids. "Look what Daddy got," he said, holding his wrist out. Denise frowned. "But Daddy, Mama said we needed that money for school." He laughed so loud it shook the walls. "Forget school. Y'all gonna be just fine. Daddy gonna take care of everything." My son, Marcus, just sat there, lips pressed tight, looking at me with those big brown eyes full of questions I didn't have the answers to. Within 2 weeks, Charles had bought himself a new car, a shiny black Cadillac with rims that made it look like a parade float. He parked it right in the driveway, blasting music, making sure the whole neighborhood knew. And you know what? Folks started clapping for him, congratulating him like he earned something. Nobody knew that it was my inheritance, Mama's blood and sweat, fueling his pride. One night, I confronted him. He was sitting in the living room, polishing that watch like it was a crown jewel. "Charles," I said, my voice steady, "you blowing through that money like it grows on trees. That was Mama's gift. That was supposed to secure the kids' future." He didn't even look up. "Woman, you still talking? I told you before, you don't get a say. You live in this house, you cook in this house, but when it comes to money, that's my department." I snapped. "Your department? You don't even have a job, Charles. I've been working double shifts at the diner for years while you sit around waiting for life to hand you something. Now life handed you my Mama's money, and you act like it's yours." That's when he dropped the rags, stood up, and got right in my face. His breath smelled of whiskey. "You better watch that mouth, Lillian," he hissed. "Don't forget who runs this house. You step out of line again, and you gon' regret it." My knees shook, but I didn't back down. I whispered, "One day, Charles, you gon' reap what you sow, and when it happens, don't you dare look at me for mercy." He laughed again, that cruel laugh that made my skin crawl, then turned his back to me like I was nothing. But let me tell you something. Deep down, I knew karma don't miss. And Charles? Oh, his day was coming. The cracks in our family started showing faster than I could patch them up. Charles was drunk on power, walking around the house like he was some king, but a king with no crown, no kingdom, just my Mama's money burning a hole in his pocket. One Saturday morning, I was in the kitchen frying bacon for the kids. The smell filled the house, and for a moment it felt normal. Then Charles stormed in, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. He had shopping bags in both hands, expensive sneakers, new clothes, and a leather jacket. "Look at this, Lil," he shouted, pulling the jacket out and holding it up like he'd won the lottery. "This is real leather, baby. Cost me almost $1,000. My spatula froze midair. $1,000. Charles, are you out your mind? That's food money for months. That's tuition for Denise's college fund. The kids peeked around the corner, watching us like it was a boxing match. Charles dropped the bags on the counter right on top of my biscuits and sneered. Don't start, you hear me? You ain't gonna nag me in my own house. That money was a blessing and I'm enjoying it. Ain't you tired of living like we broke? I slammed the spatula down so hard grease splattered. We are broke, Charles. You don't have a job. You don't put nothing in this house. All you do is take until there's nothing left. He took 2 steps toward me, his shadow swallowing me up. His voice dropped low. Careful, Lil. Don't forget your place. My son, Marcus, jumped in, his little voice shaking but brave. Leave Mama alone, Daddy. She's right. Charles spun around, pointing at him. Boy, you better shut your mouth before I shut it for you. I pushed between them, heart pounding. Don't you dare talk to him like that. That's your son. Charles shoved past me, knocking the pan off the stove. Grease hissed and splattered across the floor. Y'all ungrateful, all of you. Don't nobody respect me in this damn house, he shouted. Then he stormed out, slamming the door behind him so hard the frame cracked. The kids were trembling. Denise whispered, Mama, why you let him take Grandma's money? She meant that for you. I broke down right there in the kitchen, tears running hot down my face. Because, baby, sometimes men like him, they don't ask, they take. And I was scared. That night, I lay in bed wide awake, listening to the clock tick. Charles stumbled in hours later, reeking of liquor and cheap perfume. He dropped his keys on the dresser, then leaned over me. You better fix your attitude, he slurred. Long as I'm here, you gonna do what I say. Don't forget, you nothing but a maid who lucked up into some money. I stared at the wall, my fists clenched under the covers. Inside me, something was boiling. That anger I felt before was turning into fire. I knew right then. I couldn't let this go on. Because Mama's money was disappearing, and so was my family. And if Charles thought he could strip me down to nothing, he had another thing coming. But little did he know, Karma was already lacing up her shoes. The days that followed were like walking on broken glass. Every time Charles came home, the air turned thick. The kids scattered like mice, and I braced myself for whatever storm he was bringing through that door. One evening, I was sitting at the dining table with bills spread out in front of me. Lord knows I was trying to figure out how to stretch my paycheck, since Charles hadn't paid a single light bill or grocery tab since Mama's money hit his account. The Cadillac, the clothes, the liquor, it was all for him. The house? That was left on me. I was crunching numbers when the front door banged open. Charles staggered in, 2 men behind him, laughing loud and smelling of smoke and gin. Lillian, he hollered, his voice booming. Bring us something to eat. Me and my boys had a long night. The 2 men, strangers I'd never seen before, plopped down on my couch, muddy shoes and all. One lit a cigarette right there, ashes falling onto my rug. I stood up, my blood boiling. Charles, you're not going to bring people in here without asking me. This is our home, not some bar. He spun on me so fast my breath caught. Our home, he barked. Girl, please, everything in here is mine, bought with my money. I stepped forward, voice shaking but strong. Your money? That was Mama's inheritance, Charles. You ain't earned a dime of it. The room went silent. His friends stopped laughing. Charles' jaw clenched, his eyes narrowing. Then out of nowhere, he slammed his hand down on the table so hard the bills scattered to the floor. You ungrateful woman, he growled. All I ever gave you was a roof and food, and you got the nerve to talk back? You lucky I keep you around at all. Marcus, who'd been peeking from the hallway, shouted, Stop yelling at Mama! Charles' face twisted with rage. He lunged toward him, but I threw myself in between. Don't you touch him! I screamed, shoving him back with everything I had. For a split second, Charles just stared at me, stunned that I'd pushed him. Then he laughed, a cold, dangerous laugh. He leaned down close, his voice low enough that only I could hear. You keep defying me, Lillian, and you gonna learn the hard way. That night, I lay awake listening to him snore, and I swear I made up my mind. I wasn't going to sit quiet anymore. If he wanted to play king, he'd have to face the consequences. And baby, those consequences weren't far away. Because while Charles was out there parading with Mama's money, word in the neighborhood was starting to spread. Folks were whispering, wondering how a man with no job suddenly had a Cadillac and a gold watch. And in our town, people watch, people talk, and people remember. Charles thought he was untouchable, but I knew better. See, when a man builds his castle on lies and greed, all it takes is one strong wind to knock it down. And that wind was already picking up. It wasn't long before Charles' King of the World act started crumbling. The man was high on that inheritance money like it was some drug. Every weekend he was out flashing his Cadillac, buying rounds of drinks, gambling like he had a bottomless wallet. But see, people talk, and when you're loud, careless, and greedy, word spreads fast. One Friday night, he rolled back into the driveway at 2 a.m, music blasting so loud the neighbors turned on their porch lights. I was standing in the doorway with my robe wrapped tight around me. He stumbled out of the car, grinning ear to ear, but when he saw me, that smile twisted. "What you doing standing there like you my mama?" he barked. "Move out the way, King's home." I crossed my arms. "Charles, you embarrassing this family. Folks talking about how you spending money like it's falling from the sky. They say you losing it faster than you making it." He laughed in my face. "They just jealous. Don't nobody tell me how to live. You hear me? Nobody." But the very next week, karma decided to pay him a visit. I was at the diner working a late shift when my coworker Lisa came running up to me. "Girl, you hear about your man? He at Benny's bar acting a fool. Cops down there right now." My stomach dropped. I tossed my apron off and ran. By the time I got there, the parking lot was lit up red and blue, and there he was, Charles, shirt ripped open, blood on his lips, screaming at 2 police officers trying to hold him back. "I ain't going nowhere," he hollered, spitting on the ground. "You don't know who I am." I wanted the ground to swallow me whole. The whole town was out there watching, whispering, pointing. I pushed through the crowd. "Charles, stop it. Just stop." He twisted around, eyes wild. "Lillian, go home. This ain't your business." The officer shoved him toward the car. "Sir, you're drunk and disorderly. You're coming with us." Charles fought, but they threw him in the back like a rag doll. Folks were laughing, shaking their heads. And me? I just stood there, my heart breaking because I could hear Mama's voice clear as day. "A man who don't respect himself will never respect you." The next morning, he came crawling back, his pride bruised worse than his lip. "You ain't gonna say nothin'?" he snapped, dropping his keys on the table. I looked him dead in the eye. "No, Charles, I don't need to say nothing. Everybody else already saw who you are." That cut him deep. I could tell by the way his jaw tightened, but he didn't say another word. He just grabbed a beer and went to the porch. But in my heart, I knew something had shifted. His reputation, tarnished. His money, slipping through his fingers faster than sand, and his so-called kingdom, falling apart one brick at a time. And the best part? That was just the beginning of his fall. Because when a man steals from his own wife and disrespects his family, karma don't knock softly. She kicks the door wide open. By the time summer rolled around, I could see the money drying up. The Cadillac still gleamed in the driveway, but the shine on Charles's smile was fading fast. He'd blown through thousands, gambling, drinking, buying clothes he didn't need, and friends who didn't care about him once the money stopped flowing. And when a man like Charles starts losing, he gets mean. One night, he came home reeking of whiskey, slamming doors and cussing under his breath. I was in the kitchen washing dishes, the kids already asleep. "Where the rest of that inheritance, Lil?" he barked. I froze. "Rest, Charles. You spent it. All of it. There's nothing left." He stormed over, slammed his fist on the counter so hard the plates rattled. Don't play with me. I know you hiding something." I turned to him, my voice trembling but firm. "I told you, it's gone. You wasted it on your foolishness. And you know what? I hope it eats you alive, 'cause Mama didn't leave me that money so you could throw it in the gutter." His eyes went cold. For the first time, I truly believed he hated me. But what I didn't know, what none of us knew, was that Charles wasn't just wasting money at bars. He was gambling with the wrong people. A week later, just past midnight, we were jolted awake by pounding on the front door. Boom, boom, boom. "Open up, Charles," a voice thundered. Charles shot up from bed, panic flashing across his face. He jumped to his feet, cursing under his breath. "Damn it, it's them!" My stomach dropped. "Them who?" Before he could answer, the door burst open. 2 men stormed in, pistols in their hands, eyes burning with rage. "You think you can play us, Charles," one of them shouted. "You owe us 10 grand. Where's the money?" The kids came running out of their rooms, screaming. I threw my arms out, shielding them. "Please, don't hurt my babies." Charles grabbed the lamp off the nightstand and swung it at one of the men, but the guy dodged and fired a shot into the ceiling. Crack! Plaster rained down, smoke filling the air. The sound was deafening. Denise shrieked. Marcus clung to my waist, and my heart nearly stopped. "Stop!" I cried, dropping to my knees. "Please, there are children here." But Charles, stubborn as ever, lunged again. He shoved one of them into the wall, and the second man raised his gun straight at him. Time froze. I thought I was about to watch my husband die right there in our living room. But instead of running, Charles reached into the drawer by the couch. Lord, I didn't even know he'd hidden a revolver there. He whipped it out, firing once. Bang! The bullet grazed the man's arm, making him drop his pistol. The other man fired back. Crack! The bullet shattered the window behind me, glass flying everywhere. I pulled the kids to the floor, covering their heads, praying this nightmare would end. The 2 men scrambled, one bleeding, the other cussing, before they bolted out the door. Tires screeched as they sped away, leaving smoke and chaos behind. Silence fell except for the sound of the kids, sobbing, and my own heartbeat hammering in my ears. I looked at Charles, sweating, shaking, the gun still in his hand. He tried to play it tough, but his eyes told the truth. He was scared. And for the first time since I married that man, I saw him for what he really was. Not a king, not a provider, not even a man in control, just a fool who dragged danger straight to our doorstep. I whispered through clenched teeth, "This is the life you brought us to, Charles. Mama's money is gone, and now we almost gone too." But deep inside me, I knew this was only the beginning of his downfall. Because when you live by greed, sooner or later, bullets and karma come knocking together. The night after the shooting, I couldn't sleep. Every little sound, every car backfiring outside, every creak in the house had me jumping out my skin. The kids were curled up in my bed, trembling in their sleep. I sat up against the headboard, staring at Charles across the room. He still had that revolver in his lap, turning it over like it was some kind of trophy. "You proud of yourself?" I whispered. He didn't answer, just kept polishing the gun with a rag, jaw tight, eyes dark. By sunrise, the whole neighborhood knew. The sound of gunfire had rattled every window on our street. When I opened the door that morning, I saw Mrs. Jenkins from across the way standing with her arms crossed, shaking her head. Folks whispered as they walked by. To them, we weren't just the house with the Cadillac anymore. We were the house where bullets flew. Around noon, the police knocked. 2 officers stood there, notebooks in hand, asking questions. "Ma'am, neighbors reported gunshots," one said. "Can you tell us what happened?" Before I could speak, Charles pushed past me, puffing out his chest. "Ain't nothing happened here. Just some punks trying to scare me off, but I handled it. Ain't no problem." The officer frowned. "Sir, multiple witnesses heard shots fired, and a bullet casing was found outside your home. If you're hiding something, it won't end well." Charles smirked. I said I handled it. "Y'all done? I got things to do." I wanted to scream. My hands shook as I clutched the doorframe. "Please," I begged the officers quietly. "There were children in here. My kids almost got shot. I can't—" My voice broke. One officer softened, looking at me with pity. "Ma'am, if you feel unsafe, you can call us any time." But Charles cut in again, slamming the door right in their faces. He turned on me, his voice sharp. "You trying to make me look weak in front of them?" I snapped. "Weak? You already look weak, Charles. You brought killers into this house. You put bullets over your own kids' heads, and you still think this is about pride?" He grabbed me by the shoulders, shaking me. "I did what I had to do. Don't you get it? Without me, you wouldn't survive." Marcus ran in, pushing at him with all his might. "Get off, Mama!" Charles shoved him back, but not hard enough to hurt him, just enough to prove his point. Then he stormed out, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. Hours later, when he came back, he was limping. Blood on his shirt, a cut above his eyebrow. "What happened to you?" I asked, rushing forward. He waved me off, stumbling to the couch. "Don't worry about it." But I worried. Because later, I overheard a phone call. His voice was low, angry. "I'll get your money. Just give me time. Don't come near my family again." That's when it hit me like a punch to the chest. Charles wasn't just gambling and drinking. He was in deep debt with dangerous men. And now Mama's inheritance was gone, and he was promising money he didn't even have. The storm wasn't just at our doorstep anymore. It was already inside. And the next time, I feared, it wouldn't just be warning shots through the ceiling. It would be blood on the floor. It was 2 nights later when the reckoning came. I was in the kitchen, washing dishes, when I heard the crunch of tires outside. The street had been quiet all day, unusually quiet, like the whole neighborhood was holding its breath. But the sound of that car rolling slow made my skin crawl. I peeked through the blinds. A black sedan sat idling across the street, engine humming low, windows too dark to see inside. "Charles," I whispered, my throat tight. "They're here." He was sitting at the table, nursing a glass of whiskey, pistol on the wood beside him like it was part of his place setting. He glanced at me, then at the kids huddled in the hallway, wide-eyed. "Take him upstairs," he said. His voice was steady, but I saw his hand tremble as he reached for the gun. "Charles, do it," he barked. Before I could move, the first shot shattered the front window. Glass sprayed across the room, the whiskey glass exploded, and Charles dove to the floor, returning fire through the blinds. The crack of his revolver filled the house, each shot making the kids scream. "Down, get down," I cried, dragging Marcus and Lily toward the stairs. Bullets tore through the walls, splinters raining down like sharp rain. Charles crawled to the door, flung it open, and leaned out, firing at the car. The street lit up with muzzle flashes. I saw shadows duck behind the sedan, answering back with a rapid burst. Automatic fire. The sound was deafening, sharp, and merciless. One bullet punched through the banister, just inches from my face. My heart slammed against my ribs. I yanked the kids into the upstairs bedroom, pushing them under the bed. "Don't come out," I whispered, kissing their heads. "No matter what you hear." Then I grabbed the baseball bat from the corner and pressed my back to the wall. My hands shook so bad I could barely grip it, but I wasn't about to let anyone reach my babies. Downstairs, the fight raged. Charles shouted curses between gunshots, the floor vibrating with each exchange. Then there was silence. For a long second, the only sound was my own ragged breathing. And then, footsteps on the porch. The door creaked and I heard a man's voice, low, mocking. "Charles, you can't hide forever." I clutched the bat tighter. My legs felt like water, but rage burned hotter than fear. Another voice chimed in, closer now. "Where's the money, old man?" I heard Charles groan and something heavy hit the floor. That was it. I couldn't stay upstairs. Quiet as I could, I slipped down the steps, bat raised. The sight froze me mid-step. 2 men, faces shadowed by hoodies, stood over Charles. He was on his knees, blood on his temple, his pistol kicked out of reach. One man lifted his gun, aiming at Charles' head. Without thinking, I screamed and swung the bat with every ounce of strength I had. It cracked against the man's arm, sending the gun flying. He howled in pain, spinning toward me. The other man turned his weapon on me, but before he could fire, Charles lunged from the floor, tackling him. The gun went off, the shot deafening in the small space, plaster raining from the ceiling. They wrestled, grunting, fists flying. I grabbed the drop pistol and pointed it at the man clutching his arm. My hands shook so badly the barrel wavered, but I held it anyway. "Get out of my house," I spat, my voice shaking but fierce. The wounded man cursed, dragging his partner toward the door. "This ain't over, Charles. You hear me? This ain't over." The car roared off, tires screeching into the night. When the silence finally came, it was heavy, suffocating. Charles slumped against the wall, blood running down his face, breathing hard. I dropped the gun, my knees buckling. The kids crept down from upstairs, their eyes wide, faces pale. They had seen too much, far too much. And as I held them tight, trembling, one thought burned in my mind. The war wasn't outside anymore. It was here, in our home. And unless Charles stopped, it was going to destroy us all. The night after the gunfight, our street was no longer quiet. It buzzed with blue and red lights, police radios crackling, and neighbors whispering behind curtains. "Ma'am, you need to calm down and tell us exactly what happened," one officer said, his flashlight blinding me as I sat on the porch steps, still shaking. My robe was spattered with Charles' blood, though I hadn't realized it until the beam caught it. "2 men. They came for him," I said, my voice hollow. "They shot into my house with my children inside. What else you want me to say?" The officer frowned. "And why would 2 armed men target you in particular?" I didn't answer. How could I? What was I supposed to tell him? That Charles was knee-deep in dirty deals and had painted a target on our backs. If I said that, Charles would never forgive me. Inside, Charles was stitched up by the paramedics, a bandage wrapped around his head. But instead of gratitude for being alive, his face burned with anger. "You shouldn't have called them," he hissed when the cops left. "You think the police gonna protect us? Huh? They can't protect a damn thing." "Charles, they tried to kill you," I shouted back, my voice cracking. "And they would have killed me, too. Do you not care that your children almost—" "Don't bring them into this," he snapped, slamming his fist against the wall so hard the picture frames rattled. "This is between me and them. Ain't got nothing to do with you or the kids." "That's where you're wrong," I whispered. "It's got everything to do with us." He turned, eyes bloodshot, jaw clenched. For the first time, I saw it clear. Charles wasn't afraid of dying. He was afraid of losing control. That same week, the neighborhood shifted. Men we'd never seen before lingered on corners. Cars we didn't recognize crawled slow down our block, and the whispers from our neighbors grew louder. One evening, while I was hanging laundry, Mrs. Jenkins from across the street hurried over, her eyes wide. "You need to get your family out of here," she whispered. "Those men been asking about you, about Charles, and let me tell you, they don't sound like they're just curious." My stomach dropped. What did they ask? They asked when Charles comes and goes, if he got money, if he keeps it in the house. She grabbed my arm tight. "Child, you in danger. Don't wait for it to come knocking again." That night, I confronted Charles. "We gotta leave," I told him. "Pack up the kids, go somewhere safe. Your enemies know too much." He barked out a bitter laugh. "You think running gonna save us? Woman, you don't understand. Once you're in this, there ain't no leaving. Only way out is blood." "Then you're choosing blood over us?" My voice trembled, but I held his gaze. For a long moment, he didn't answer, just stared, silent. The next day, I woke to the sound of the back door creaking open. I thought it was Charles, but when I went downstairs, I froze. 2 men in dark jackets were in my kitchen. One had a crowbar, the other a gun tucked into his waistband. "Oh, God." "Shh," the one with the crowbar sneered, pressing a finger to his lips. "Where's Charles?" I backed away slowly, heart pounding. He's not here." They looked at each other, then spread out like wolves circling prey. Then you'll do just fine." Before I could scream, the one with the gun lunged at me. Instinct took over. I grabbed the nearest thing I could reach, the cast iron skillet off the stove, and swung it with all my might. It cracked against his head with a sickening thud, and he crumpled, groaning. The second man rushed me, crowbar raised. I ducked, the swing smashing into the cabinet, splinters flying. I shoved him with all my strength, then bolted for the stairs. "Charles!" I screamed. "Charles!" He came tearing out of the bedroom, pistol in hand, just as the man with the crowbar gave chase. The shot rang out before I could even cover my ears. Charles hit him square in the chest. The man dropped instantly, crowbar clattering against the floor. The other intruder scrambled up, blood dripping from his forehead, and staggered toward the door. Charles fired again, the bullet shattering the frame inches from his head. The man dove outside, running for his life. Charles stood there, chest heaving, gun smoking. Then he turned to me. "See," he said, his voice cold. "This is what I've been telling you. There ain't no walking away. It's kill or be killed." I looked at the blood pooling on my kitchen floor. The body sprawled at my feet, and for the first time in my marriage, I was truly afraid of my husband. Not just of what was chasing him, but of what he was becoming. The morning after the break-in, the whole block knew something had gone down. Sirens wailed again, officers filled my kitchen, and neighbors stood outside like it was Sunday gossip. But this time, the police weren't so quick to believe Charles's story. One detective leaned against the counter, staring at the blood on the tiles. "Funny thing," he said slowly, "a body drops in this house, but nobody on this street saw two men go in. You sure you didn't pull the trigger first, Mr. Harris?" Charles stiffened, jaw clenched. "You calling me a liar?" The detective smirked. "I'm saying your story's got more holes than this wall here." He tapped the bullet-riddled plaster. I thought Charles would explode, but instead he smiled that tight, dangerous smile I'd learned to fear. "Officer, you best find the man who broke into my house," he said through gritted teeth, "before I find him first." The detective didn't flinch. He just wrote something in his notebook and walked out, leaving the room heavy with suspicion. When the door closed, I turned to Charles. "You can't keep this up. They're watching us. They don't believe you." "They don't have to," he said flatly, loading his pistol at the table. "As long as they fear me, that's enough." My heart dropped. This wasn't a man trying to protect his family anymore. This was a man digging his own grave and daring the world to bury him. That night, the kids and I tried to sleep, but the house felt haunted by violence. I tossed and turned, praying for a way out. Then in the dead of night, I heard Charles whispering on the phone downstairs. I crept halfway down the steps, holding my breath. "Yeah, I got it. The money's here. She don't need it no more." "What you mean, how much? It's 200 grand. Every penny she had from her daddy." My blood froze. He was talking about my inheritance, my father's last gift, the money I had guarded like a lifeline. Tears stung my eyes as I clutched the railing. He wasn't just using me, he was selling me out. I didn't realize I gasped until Charles spun around, eyes locking on me like a snake spotting prey. "You spying on me?" he growled, phone still in hand. "I heard you!" I screamed, rushing down the stairs. "That money's not yours. That's all I have left from my father, and you—" His hand cracked across my face before I could finish. The slap echoed through the house. My cheek burned, tears spilling instantly. "Don't you ever raise your voice to me," he snarled, pointing the pistol at the floor between us. "You ain't nothing but a maid in this house. You clean, you cook, and you stay out my business." I stumbled back, sobbing, the kids' cries drifting from upstairs. He stormed past me, snatching the envelope of cash from the cabinet where I'd hidden it. "You hand this over nice and quiet," he said coldly, stuffing it into his jacket, "or they'll take it from you the hard way." That was the night something broke inside me. But karma was waiting. The next evening, Charles met his buyers in a run-down parking lot on the edge of town. He thought he was in control, thought his gun and his arrogance made him untouchable, but I followed him. I hid in the shadows, heart racing, watching as he handed over my father's inheritance to men who looked colder than death itself. 200 grand, just like I promised, Charles said, puffing his chest. Now we're even. The man in the leather jacket smirked. Even? You think this pays for everything you owe? Boy, this just gets you on the list. Before Charles could argue, another man stepped out of the car with a shotgun. The click echoed like thunder. Charles froze, finally realizing he wasn't the predator tonight. He was the prey. You brought this on yourself, the man sneered. You can't cheat the streets and expect to walk away. The shotgun went off. Chaos exploded. Charles dove for cover, returning fire wildly, bullets sparking off metal. I screamed, ducking behind a dumpster as glass shattered and men shouted. It was a full-blown gunfight. The parking lot lit up like a war zone. And for the first time, I didn't feel fear for Charles. I felt justice closing in. I crawled backward, shaking, as I watched the man who had belittled me, robbed me, and put his family in danger finally face the storm he created. This was karma, and it had found his name. The night of that gunfight in the parking lot, the world seemed to stop spinning. I crouched low behind that dumpster, covering my ears as bullets ricocheted and men shouted like wild dogs, tearing each other apart. The air smelled of smoke, gunpowder, and betrayal. Charles pinned down, firing until his revolver clicked empty. He fumbled for more rounds, sweat dripping into his eyes, blood streaking down his arm. "Charles Harris," one of the men called out from behind a car, his voice cruel and steady. "You ran out of luck, and tonight you run out of time." Another blast shook the night. Charles staggered backward, clutching his side. His gun slipped from his hand and skidded across the pavement. I gasped, my whole body trembling. Part of me wanted to run to him, but another part, the part that remembered the slap, the insults, the way he ripped my inheritance out of my hands, held me still. Charles dropped to his knees, blood pouring through his fingers. His eyes found me in the shadows. "Help me," he croaked, his voice desperate now. "Baby, please." The same man who once said I was nothing but a maid was begging me to save him. I shook my head, tears blurring my vision. "You made this bed, Charles," I whispered, though he couldn't hear me over the chaos. "Now you lying in it." The men closed in. One lifted his shotgun again. But just then, flashing red and blue lights bathed the lot. Sirens screamed. Police cars screeched to a halt, doors flying open. "Drop your weapons!" officers bellowed. Gunfire erupted again, this time between the gang and the cops. I ducked as bullets flew, glass shattered, and tires blew out. Charles tried crawling toward me, dragging himself across the pavement, but one last shot rang out. He collapsed face first, motionless. The chaos roared on for minutes that felt like hours until finally silence settled. The gang scattered, some arrested, others slipping into the night. I crept forward, my heart pounding, and stood over Charles. His eyes were open, but the light was gone. His hand, still smeared with my father's inheritance money, lay limp against the ground. And in that moment, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel triumph. I felt the weight of wasted years, wasted love, and wasted life. The police pulled me aside, asked questions, but I barely heard them. My mind was fixed on one truth. Karma had done what I could not. The next morning, I packed up my children. We left that house, that street, that chapter of pain behind. My babies deserved better than living in the shadow of a man's greed. For years, I carried the scar of that night, but I also carried the lesson. Never let someone strip you of your worth. Never let their cruelty define you, and never forget what you sow will always come back to you. Charles thought I was just a maid, but in the end he was just a man who lost everything because he couldn't see the treasure standing right beside him. And that inheritance he stole, It didn't buy him freedom, it bought him karma. The end. Please like and subscribe for more rich stories like this. Let us know in the comments below which lesson you learned from this story and where you are watching from and what time you are currently watching this video. Also, if you really love this video and want to support the channel directly, you can hit that super thanks button below.